Hello, people. Day 14 at the cabin. I finished the book, Empires and Barbarians, The Fall of Rome and the Birth of Europe. This is a book that I started 10 years ago, and it's a 618-page book, and I probably read 200 pages of it 10 years ago, and then maybe a year ago I read another 100 pages, and then I read the last 200 pages just in the last couple of days. This is not a book for the layman. 10 years ago, I was the layman. In the meantime, I've read several other books on the same subject, so this time when I picked it up, I kind of knew what he was talking about. I recognized the names, the dates, the places. This book talks about, in the first place, it talks about the Huns moving west and causing, like the pool table effect, especially with the Germanic nations. And the Germanic nations moved to get away from the Huns. And, eventually that's what caused the downfall of the Western Roman Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire went on for much, much longer. This book only covers the first 1,000 years of CE. CE means Common Era. Nobody says BC and AD anymore. That's old hat. So I do have a little bit of notes in here. It covers, the Germanic nations with their migrations. It covers the rise of the Slavic nations with their migrations. And it also covers the Vikings, and some of the stuff about the Vikings I wasn't aware of. I wasn't aware that they actually kind of founded the Russian. The Rus is an old word for Swedish people. I had no idea that they had their tentacles and that many things. The Vikings were a little bit on a different level than most of these other migrations were just people moving by foot. A lot of them were one family at a time. Some of them were great big whole people's migrations where they had wagons full of their shit, their children and their wives, everything. He talks about all of that in this book. He also talks about the reasons why all of that was happening. I do have some notes in here. This first note, most of this book was before I started doing these videos. So I'm on page 424 here before I have my first note. And this is just about a guy named Debritus. Debritus was one of the Slavic leaders. And when an author like this tries to figure these things out, he uses archaeology, which is continually going on. They're always learning new things. They use DNA evidence, and they also turn to ancient writers. There was plenty of people writing books in that first 1,000 years. So somebody has recorded what Debritus had to say. And Debritus says, he's boasting, he says, "What man has been born? What man is warmed by the rays of the sun, who shall make our might his subject? Others do not conquer our land, we conquer theirs." So Debritus was kind of a badass. Early medieval Europe is a tale of migrations. And I've got written down here, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Europeans aren't migrating anymore, but other peoples are. And inequalities of wealth and development provide one fundamental stimulus to migration. Another one would be you're trying to escape from some form of violence. Another one would be your family has migrated in the past. So they've done some studies where people whose families have migrated, they also migrate. Migration, taxation, religion, retinue building. I like that word, retinue. Retinue is a king's people. There were lots of kings back in these days. Sometimes a lot of them all in the same area. The retinue is just the king's men. You know, Donald Trump has the largest retinue that the earth has ever seen. That's all it means. It's your army, it's your military, it's your men. Uh, Towards the end of the book, he's talking about Christianity being accepted by the European nations, and it eventually was. The Slavic people were kind of the last ones to do that. So when it was accepted, it was a formal thing. The leader would accept that. So it doesn't mean that all their people accepted it, but their leader did. And authors like this, and the types of books that I read, he doesn't talk about Christianity as a key to an afterlife or saving your soul. He talks about it as a piece of the puzzle, as a piece of the machinations of a fledgling state. It's a way to put another layer of higher up people. It's a way to get money from your people. It has nothing to do with what Christianity actually says or anything like that. Christianity, he talks about it the same way he talks about a building program, like when they round up some people to build castles, or they round up people to build a road. It's the same thing. This was a very enjoyable book, even though I bought it 10 years too early. I would recommend this to anyone, as long as you have a little bit of background in this type of information. I'm going to read Newton's third law of empires here. And it just says that the exercise of imperial power generates an opposite and equal reaction among those affected by it, until they so reorganize themselves as to blunt the imperial edge. That's going on now too, and so are migrations. And migrations are going on for the same reasons that they did in the past. They will probably never stop. And the process of nation and state building will probably never stop. The borders and everything that are on the earth, that we've arbitrarily drawn on the earth right now, are not going to stay the same. There's going to be coalitions that decide to band together. The European Union is just kind of a fitful start of all that. Anyways, that's it. Day 14 at the cabin. I'm probably going to stay for another 11 days, something like that. It's a little bit chilly today. I've actually been having a fire in the wood stove inside the cabin. That's it. Thank you.